Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. My name is Khachatur Virabyan, and I'm the editor of the creative tech section here at EVN Report. In this episode, Khachatur Virabyan, the co-founder and CEO of Stylebit, joins us to discuss all things design systems. Khachatur breaks down how design systems are built and how Stylebit helps companies track design system metrics such as adoption. We also spoke about how modern AI systems enable non-technical people to interact with engineering systems through natural language interfaces. Khachatur also shared with us his entrepreneurial journey and the path to finding a product idea that could gain traction in the marketplace. Thank you for listening. Khachatur, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with a little bit of your background.
Sure.
How'd you get started? What'd you do for school? What'd you study? And how'd you end up in the world of tech and entrepreneurship?
Sure. It's quite a journey. At first, thanks very much for having me. It's a really great pleasure to be here. So I can go a little bit to the past in terms of I started in computers and in programming back in 2006 when I got my first PC. So then, of course, I started to play games and stuff, but always I was assembling and reassembling the PC. So I really got that interest in the hardware and stuff. And
were you configuring it, adding new parts and stuff? Or?
Yeah, so I was just always tearing something apart and always breaking things up. And I remember there was this guy who was coming and reinstalling the Windows back then with 8,000 drums. Every month he was doing that, and it was taking him all day. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Then I started in the Polytechnic University, the State Engineering University of Armenia, in hardware engineering and microelectronics. Then I got to Synopsys in very large-scale integrated systems, and so I did the hardware. By education, I'm a hardware engineer. Then I did my master's in Synopsys too, but always in the meantime, I was doing software. But I've kind of not worked in a hardware engineering field and in terms of getting salary and stuff. But always I did software, and specifically I was really interested in graphical interfaces. Always I did like user interfaces, front-end engineering, graphical user interfaces and stuff. So then it slowly started to be my passion towards like creating graphics UIs, graphics engineering and stuff. So that is like a very seamless integration into design world,
Right.
into UIs, into design tools and stuff. I've never been a designer who designs interfaces, but I've always been involved into design tools. So that is kind of my all like hardware engineering, software, and then eventually graphics engineering.
But I want to learn more about why you're interested in graphics engineering, but it's interesting that you ended up at Synopsys right after graduating.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much as good of a place as you can end up right out of school in Armenia.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've really observed is a lot of entrepreneurs within the Armenian ecosystem, they've had the like great fortune of being at some great institution, whether it be at a company level or at a school level and stuff. For example, I even include like high schools like PhysMath at that. There's a huge, just based on our podcast guests, it seems like I don't know, maybe like 40 to 50% of our guests have been PhysMath grads. So I always find that interesting. Tell us a little bit about what the culture at Synopsys was like and how did that impact you? How did that influence you?
Yeah, sure. So Synopsys is one of that great places in terms of hardware engineering where you can really study real world stuff.
And we're talking like world-class quality.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
like
one of the biggest.
Yeah, of course. So when we were back in my bachelor years at Synopsys, we were doing real stuff with in IC Designer and DC compiler or whatever. We were doing like 80 or 70 nanometer stuff back when we were just learning. And right after the next building, like in the next building, people were designing like 5 nanometers, 10 nanometers processors. It was like nuts. Like doing that and being there in Armenia, it's really, really awesome. And Synopsys is a powerhouse in terms of the hardware engineering and the education inside in terms of hardware engineering. And for them, Armenia is one of the best places. Like they can foster their own talent here. Synopsys, as far as I know, has second largest R&D in Armenia. Like the first one, as far as I remember, it was in India. And the second one is in Armenia. So having those prospects, like students from State Engineering University of Armenia and mostly State Engineering University of Armenia. Of course, they had also a partnership with State University of Armenia, but mostly they were coming from Polytechnic, basically. Giving that possibility there, it's really awesome. And to be honest, in Synopsys, there wasn't like a hard focus on entrepreneurship or something related to that, but we had a class which was like just plain entrepreneurship, but it was just focused on computer science, whatever the technology, the opportunities, the market and stuff. But yeah, Synopsys is just a really, really great place to end up after State Engineering University, because as like it is sad, of course, but the Polytechnic University is a really, really good place, but it's really outdated. So just after that, being in Synopsys was really, really cool.
On the podcast, we've spoken somewhat about YSU's efforts to maybe cultivate a little bit of like an entrepreneurship community there. We've spoken a little bit about AUAs, but we haven't spoken about Polytechnic before. Are there any like on-campus clubs, communities, initiatives to encourage startup activity and encourage entrepreneurship among students?
There is, but mostly the focus around engineering in a startup culture and stuff. Recently, they, I can't remember the year they renovated it. It was Cafeteria. They renovated it into an entrepreneurial house. Like there are events there. People are just going and hanging out there. It is a really, really cool place to be in. And also like State Engineering University of Armenia has a long partnership with Microsoft. The Microsoft Research Center was always around that. They also had partnerships with National Instruments, like NI short term. So they did a lot of partnerships, but we hadn't had any entrepreneurial classes there. So it was really only hard focused on engineering. But I think they're doing a lot of efforts in just connecting the students with entrepreneurial market, like what is it, how you can create some stuff, and how you can use your engineering skills to do that. But that is specifically the hardware and microelectronics inside the Polytechnic University. I do know that the programming department inside the Polytechnic, they do involve a lot with industry experts and stuff. I think up to date, we do have the Kaspersky Lab in State Engineering University. So it's really cool stuff. Yeah. So I think they are doing the efforts, yeah.
For people who don't know, tell us what that lab is.
So yeah, that is Kaspersky Lab is a small research lab where people in computer science department in the State Engineering University of Armenia, they are doing research in cybersecurity. They do have the tools from Kaspersky. They do have the experts from Kaspersky. As far as I remember, just coming and visiting once in a while. So there's also a really good culture, good way to connect the student with the broader culture of the field. So yeah, but I don't think that the hard focus is on entrepreneurship still. Yeah. So it's just focused on engineering and stuff.
To some extent, I guess it probably makes sense because doing hardware startups anywhere, but in Armenia especially, is extremely difficult.
Oh yeah.
So if there's a huge focus on hardware engineering within the university, it understands why that pipeline is tough to sort of create from scratch.
Yeah.
But now there's a number of successful startups and entrepreneurs that are grads of Polytechnic. So the one that comes to mind is Gagan from Expert Technology. So Robin the Robot's creator was I think it is bachelor's, master's, and PhD at
and also in Synopsys too.
At Synopsys too. There you go. And now as Stylebit grows, so it's the onus is on you guys to go back there and I guess cultivate that culture, right?
Sure.
Okay, so, and I got to ask, why graphics engineering? Throughout my computer science studies, I always avoided graphics engineering all throughout. So tell me what I missed out on.
So I think I was lucky to really love the games, like computer games, but not in terms of fun, but also in terms of understanding what is going on there, like how you can view user interfaces, 3D graphics on the 2D screen. And also, one of the really heroes of mine is John Carmack, the founder, the creator of Doom, and all his writings, all the books that is associated with, and the sci-fi, really helped me in that. But also, I was really lucky that in math, like the linear algebra was the only thing that was really easy for me, not the other parts. It was came somewhat natural to me, but that was like a really good combination, basically. Right. I would not say that I was doing a lot of like hardcore linear algebra stuff with my prior experiences, but I did have something involved there. Having just pixels, like basic triangles, and create games out of those triangles, it's like really mind-boggling. Like those are just triangles, basically. Like at the lower level, those are just triangles. Right. So it was just fun. Like
Right.
it's really, really fun.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I ended up in like loving and like doing something in graphics engineering and just in
Right.
user interfaces.
So matrix multiplication plus Doom got you
Basically, yeah.
to graphics
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah.
I think if every entrepreneur who got their start because they love Doom gave the guy like 0.001%, he would be the world's first trillionaire, because you keep hearing it on podcasts about how because it was probably one of the first games that was also like configurable, right? Like there was things you could do inside.
They're still
Yeah.
up to this day. People are releasing some extensions or level ups in the Doom,
Yeah.
like in the traditional environment, like that pixelated graphics and stuff. It's like the culture of Doom. It's mesmerizing. There is a very phenomenal book called Masters of Doom. That book is like one of the best ones I've read in quite a while. So it tells about the Silicon Valley culture around the games, the hardware stuff, the NVIDIA stuff, how people were just hacking games in their like basement, how the government was like pushing them back, like because the Doom was really, really like heavy on some 18 plus stuff like blood and whatever.
Right.
So how they fought that back, how they did that, it's just really, really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that. But at the time, there was like a huge anti-video game push from, like, especially in like conservative circles within the United States, that this was causing violence and stuff, and shootings and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about all that.
And also, like the Doom, and as far as I know, it was Commander Keen. They were the first ones which had like immersive graphic things. Like it was the first one which had higher FPSs. Somewhat 3D experiences where you can move the mouse around and you can move the world around. So that smooth scroll experiences and stuff, it was the first one in the mass market with that one. And it was really causing photo epilepsy issues. And because, like, of course, every new stuff should be regulated, even if it's tied to computer stuff.
Sure.
So yeah, it was a really, really like interesting times there, yeah.
And I guess like the modern day version would probably be something like Minecraft, right? Because it also has the same configurability and things.
Yeah, in terms of configurability, for sure. Yeah. So it's really fascinating to see that back then, people like ID Software, like John Carmack and all the team, like thought about having the extensible platform there, because the extensibility is basically the key. And if we see, we can also draw parallels like in design tools too. Like Figma is a really powerhouse because it has the extensibility there, like the plugin ecosystem and whatever, like people can just augment the experience in Figma. So that extensibility in mass adoption is definitely the key, I think.
Yeah. So now we've officially transitioned to some of the more relevant stuff that you're working on today. Before you tell us what Stylebit is and what Stylebit does, define the sort of the problem statement that you guys are working on. What are design systems? What are the issues, or what are the challenges with working with them today? And then tell us how you guys are solving that.
Sure. I will get you started with what design systems are, basically. So the design systems, to be honest, I don't like that name, but design systems are the set of specifications and the guidelines which are reusable, basically. So designers and engineers collectively agree on very small elements like Lego pieces. So then they can reuse them. In programming world, we know them as libraries, frameworks, wherever. It's like you have a small library and then you can reuse it inside your code base, right? So design systems are basically that. Those are just a set of specifications. Like by specifications, I mean components. Like that's a wider word known to the people. The components can be a single button. It can be a drop down. It can be an avatar. It can be a search box, a form. So all that little elements inside the user interfaces that we can see. Those are components. They are being added up with the very small elements like typography, text size, colors, border radiuses, and whatever. And that in summary, that becomes as a design system. So then that design system is being replicated. So designers have the design system drawn in design tools, and the engineers code that in their like frameworks like React, Angular, or whatever. So why design systems are really hyped in last years, because like the consensus is that it really helps to speed things up. Because when designers know that they can create a page, let's say an account settings page, with already existing UI components that they know that are coded on the engineering side, they know that that page is going to take like 4 hours or 5 hours instead of a couple of days. Then they are reusing their own components, which speeds up their workflows for designers. And then they hand off that page, account settings page, to engineers, and then they reuse the components they already coded. So yeah, that is a shared set of specification to help speed things up in terms of product development. But in that process, there's a lot of stuff that is broken, to be honest, because design tools were not meant for designer to developer collaboration until very recent Figma config, where they released dev mod, which is just a fascinating way of collaborating with engineers. So I really like to give this example of design systems, that design systems are internal products with internal customers. Those internal customers are engineers, marketing people, designers, product managers, a lot of stakeholders inside the company. But the problem is that that internal product doesn't have any visibility. Like, people cannot track who is using that, how they're using it.
The components, you mean? Or?
Yeah. How often they're using it. Are they actually using it, reusing it? How, for example, there is an iOS application, an Android application, the web platform. Web platform is using design system like very extensively, but the iOS application, people like engineers from iOS, they're not using it. Possibly there's an issue with that. Possibly the version is outdated for the iOS library or whatever. So I would love to give the parallel in the analytics world. Basically, Stylebit is Amplitude for design systems. So Amplitude is that product analytics tool. We're a dev tool, basically dev and design tool, but mostly a dev tool, which gives that visibility and analytics on design systems, on how they are performing in the real world, who is using it, how they're using it. And also we're aiming to make the platform extensible, so people can just easily write their own plugins.
Build on top of it.
Yeah, so they can track their own metrics, because the OKRs around design systems are different from company to company. One of the customers we're right now talking to, so they're really wanting to track the amount of components from a design system being documented. So that is their own metric. And there's their own specific case. They want to track that metric. We want to.
What does it mean for it to be documented?
So there is also a really hot topic right now in design system space, that the design system should be documented. By documented, we mean like a plain documentation on how the certain components should be used. Like a button component should be used like this, that, and that. So if you are using dark theme, you should include this or that. Like, it's just a plain documentation that we all know, but specifically tailored to design system needs. So they are also counting accessibility issues and stuff. It's a written documentation on how to use it.
But is that use case for companies that build design systems internally for their own products,
Yes.
or design systems that they release for other people to take and use?
That's a good one. Both of them have a documentation. Like right now, if you Google Salesforce Lightning, which is one of the big, like really big design systems, public design systems from Salesforce, they do have their own documentation. You can click button and you can see the usage report, like how you can use the button, the do's and don'ts, how to use the button with an icon and whatever. So that's just a plain documentation on how to use it. That's a good one, because all the public design systems do have a documentation website, but internal ones usually do not. And usually companies are getting more involved into just having a documentation. But one of the companies we were speaking, they were just really happy documenting it in Notion. One of the companies were really happy documenting in Confluence. One of the just documents inside the Figma, like it's just enough for them. So it's a problem that every company solves by themselves, and how it's best for them, basically. So one of the companies that reached out to us, they were documenting their design system inside the Storybook, which is a dev tool which enables the developers to have that separate playground for design systems. And they wanted to specifically track the amount of components being documented inside the Storybook. That is basically a little bit out of our scope. That is why it's a really, really good use case where the external plugins can help here. So we're giving that plugin environment, and then the engineers from that company can just in a couple of hours can write their own plugin and just track whatever they want.
Interesting. Give us some more examples of what people can track using Stylebit.
What
are the most popular ones?
Yeah, so the general one is what's called the adoption rate. It's a very vague thing to say, like adoption rate. So what we mean by adoption rate, how the design system is being adopted by the internal products, basically. So let's say if we have a design system in place and I am a developer of a front-end application for that product. So the amount of times I'm reusing the components from a design system, the amount of times I'm reusing it correctly, the amount of times I'm overriding them, changing them, and also how many times I'm using something to create UI which is not in the design system. Those are just the generic metrics that we're tracking. But also...
So just for both myself and for the audience to make sure I understood correctly. So let's say there's a component that is, the medium-sized button on a website, right? That has its own set ratios and sizes, right? Every time that component is used on the website, it should be used based on those standards that were set in the design system. And then if the developer messes with those ratios or sizes, you guys track that and say that there's lack of uniformity now because the scale of it.
That is really correct. So there's one of the things that we're tracking. Yes. So how they're using it, how they're misusing it. Because, from the code side, it's a hard science. Like if it's React, it's a props that you can control. It's a CSS classes or whatever. We really can track it. So that is one of the use cases. Yeah, that's definitely one of the use cases. But also one of the aims of ours is to give that... we're right now working on it, to give that natural language interface on top of all that data, because not all product managers are engineers or engineer focused or whatever. So we are really aimed to give that natural language interface for stakeholders to ask questions. Like the plain questions that we know that we can ask to ChatGPT, but specifically tailored with around the data we've gathered around design system. For example, a product manager can ask, how often engineers in front-end app using the elements from a design system, and we can answer that question. So that is really aim of ours, because in smaller companies, smaller to medium companies, usually they don't have a head of design who can propagate all that information to the other stakeholders. So usually those are director of products, product people, CEOs even. So they are really, it's really useful for them to have that natural language interface to just have that conversation there and just have their answers, and that's it.
So one of the most interesting use cases that I think some of these LLM APIs have opened up is non-technical people that work at really like hard engineering companies, like AI companies, like even just like a company that has a front end that they've built themselves, right? Things that they have to track. Oftentimes the product manager or project managers that are the ones that are interfacing with the customers and getting that feedback. But because they don't have the technical background, they often just have to relay that information to the engineering teams. And then there's always like some piece that gets missed, right? Like along that like broken telephone conversation. But now that they have just a more natural way of interacting with a really technical product, a product that they're managing, it really opens up a new world of them gaining insights into how the product is being used. So that's really interesting that you guys have integrated that in.
That's really, really good use case. I mean, when I was starting to use Mixpanel to track whatever is happening on our platform, I wasn't like, I'm an engineer. I don't know about the conversion rates and whatever. I'm learning that, of course. But in general, when I was just getting started to track metrics, it was really like, it was a really good learning curve for me. Like I was just taking the Mixpanel documentation, understanding how can I put the events and whatever. So at the end of the day, I was, okay, I'm tracking whatever I want. So how can I measure like the conversion? How can I measure this or that? So for me, it was a really good use case to just ask that question after I have all these events set up already. But like how we were doing prior to whatever with this generative AI and LLM stuff, the softwares like the Mixpanel had its own way of tracking it. So you needed to create, you need to track the signups, and then whatever metric you want to track that conversion rate, right? So possibly sign up and let's say subscription.
Right.
Like you're tracking who's signed up and then tracking who's subscribed. And then you can understand the conversion rate from people who are signing up and who are starting to pay, right? So that is one of the really interesting spaces that I'm really thinking around right now. And I'm also trying to write a blog post about it on how current LLMs and the AI interfaces, the buzzword or whatever, is changing how we're interacting with, I would say, compute. Like not the software, but how we're interacting with the compute, how we do have that human compute interaction rather than human computer interaction. So
human computer interaction. What do you mean by that?
So always we had human computer interaction, right? Because we had some machine which were doing the computation for us, and we as humans had to interact with it. So right now it's really, really starting to change. I'm sure a lot of people seen the recent Microsoft announcements in the Bing chat. Like you can, let's say you want to make a pasta. In a website which gives some recipe for a pasta, like whatever pasta you imagine, you can interact with the chat and it can give you all the ingredients you need, right? And then you can order them for me.
Right.
And Bing chat orders them from Instacart, and in that case, you never went to Instacart.
Right.
You never clicked some things inside Instacart. You never did anything in Instacart, right? But then you see that very small window there inside the chat where you can just click order. Basically, a lot of designers just really cried there because they designed the interface for Instacart. They designed how you should interact with the Instacart. But right now you're just skipping that. So basically that interaction with the software. So previously the interaction was the hard-coded thing with designers did, right? So designers were coding, quote unquote, your interaction with the platform. So you have a large button, you click it, right? There's call to action buttons or whatever. So that is also why we think that the design itself is changing a bit, because right now we do have that middle interface. We can basically interact with whatever application is there without even having an interface. Like in this case, Instacart. You were just ordering something from Instacart without even visiting there.
Right.
So it's really, really exciting times, to be honest, there, because design tools are really evolving into generative AI design tools. But the platforms like ChatGPT with the plugins, if you have a ChatGPT Plus and you have the plugin access, you can never even visit Expedia, basically. And you can basically do everything from there. I would not say that the ChatGPT itself is a really good product. Like it's a separate, it's a chatbot, you can do that. But in general, that gives us a thought that the interfaces are really changing. I'm not a fan of chat interfaces, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, we can see that there is a change.
The knowledge discovery method for most people is totally changing.
Oh, yeah. Right? That is to be honest, like the search experience is changing.
Yeah. My biggest thing is I do use ChatGPT a lot for knowledge discovery, but at the end of the day, you still have to go back to Google and verify it because you can't fully rely on the information that it's giving you yet. So if it could just almost like source where it's getting the thing from, then it would make at least my life much easier. It would save me a step of first going to Google and doing the search and finding the article that would verify that information.
That is where the Bard will come in. I mean, will come in. I'm really betting on Google efforts around Bard. Yeah. Like possibly I'm the only one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
But I'm like from a very, very higher standpoint, I mean, Google is.
But they should be able to because they're the leaders of that, right? Like,
I mean, transformers were created inside Google.
Even if we put that aside, like,
of course,
they're the best people in the world to index information.
Possibly, yeah. That's a very good point. But I mean, having a good scientist and using that to have a really good application for a product, those are just really separate things. And that is where OpenAI like really shined there, right? They created a product that people were using. So who cares about from a consumer perspective? Who cares about the lab where we were creating transformers, basically, from a consumer perspective? Right. But yeah, I mean, I really just will always bet on Google in terms of that. So yeah, we'll wait because Bard. I've seen a demo of Bard where they're sourcing the information. Mm-hmm. So it was like a very natural way of doing the search and plus the Bard experience with the LLM. So
I think Bing Chat does it as well, right?
Bing is very good. Yeah. Like it's like hell again. Like in terms of the integrations, in terms of doing like It's really good, and we right now we can really see that the Google search is declining a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's a game for like it's a long game. I think.
For sure. But coming back to design systems, what changes for design systems in the age of knowledge discovery, or even just interacting with apps being done more through these LLM UIs?
Yeah, sure. That's a good one. That's a really good one. So let me start with what I think in terms of how design and code will change a bit in this generative AI and stuff. So the best case scenario, and I'm sure it will be the case, that all the user interfaces basically will be generated right out after the design tools. Like we see that right now. So Figma demoed that they currently the VS Code extension for Figma, you can auto-complete the code with just pressing tabs, auto-complete the UI from a design.
So you build the components in Figma, and then through VS Code, it automatically generates the front-end
like
code.
Like a Copilot, yes. So it's still early stages. They're only supporting CSS, but for sure they will gonna support React and whatever there. And also there is an extension called Anima, which just exports code from the design. So we will see. I'm not a fan of that because there are a lot of stuff to consider, because accessibility is one issue, long-term usage scale, like long-term vision of those components and the design system can be really tricky to handle. But it's a problem which can be solved, of course. But usually, like you can generate landing pages, but I think cannot generate right now like video editing software. So it's a really hard challenge because the interactivity is very too much.
And the functionality of that is much different than a landing page.
Yeah. And it's changing very rapidly. The interactions are massive. Landing pages, whatever, which is static. Like static in means that there is no interactivity. I would not say that the blog pages or whatever. So which are the interfaces which are static can be generated with out of design tools with the extensions, or at the end of the day with Figma. But when we reach to that places in the applications where everything is dynamic, interactions are really high and whatever, I think there will be a lack of just like easily generating things with the Copilot or whatever. Not Copilot, with the Figma
with
extension,
something like that, code generation.
So design tools will be really good in reusing the design system elements when they are generating those static pages. Like whenever you have a design system in place, Figma will reuse everything from there when you're generating the code for a landing page. They just do need to have access to that design system library, which is oftentimes a JavaScript library there in the front-end applications. So it just needs to have the access to that and can generate the code reusing the components from that design system. But there is a really interesting thing we're trying to explore there, because the design systems itself they're not static, they're evolving. So how the feedback loop will happen whenever their design system is changing in the code side, we need to somehow tell the Figma AI or whatever that, hey, there is a change there. You need to apply those changes there to reuse it. So a lot of things to think there, of course. Design systems, in my opinion, they're not static, they're dynamic. Using them for static user interfaces with design tools that can auto-generate code, yes, that application is very good. But for more dynamic places where the interactions are high, the reuse of that design system is actually a job of an engineer. So the tracking, the metrics there will always be there. And also we're trying to explore how we can be that place where we can give how AI is using the design system place, like how it is reusing the elements from a design system. Because like when AI is generating the code using your design system, there is also things to track. Like how it generated the code, how often it is reusing the button component if there is a new version of a button component or whatever. So there's also a good data to gather there. But yeah, I mean, we're still
So
exploring.
it could almost become like a monitoring system for AI front end engineer, like AI systems that build front ends.
There
right?
is definitely a thing which we're trying to explore, like how we can be useful there, because so we need to explore there. But
That's really
that's just general ideas that we want to explore there. Yeah.
When you started saying that, so AI systems will automatically generate the code for these components that are built in tools like Figma.
Yeah.
My first thought was, well, that's a big challenge for you guys.
Yeah.
It becomes much more uniform throughout, and there's probably less to track.
Yeah.
But there's now, the way that you just presented it, it seems like there's also a huge opportunity for actually sort of like doing oversight on how the AI systems are, or if the AI systems are doing it correctly, right?
So, and also the application there to, we can gather all that data, right, on how people were using the design system, and how now the AI systems are reusing the elements from a design system. But if the design systems are evolving, there needs to be some like feedback loop coming back from a design system to those AI systems.
Right.
So how we can be that middleman, how we can create that platform that that data can be useful for all those AI systems. We have a focus on it also, so we're exploring, but I can't say that we have like these solutions for that. So it's just a field we're exploring. Yeah.
I want to go back to the metric tracking for a second. I think you briefly touched on it, but are you guys able to also give feedback to the design and development teams on whether or not some designs are working or not? Like, can you almost like, not A/B testing, but like, can you get feedback from whether or not this is a successful design in terms of like increasing like user growth or like things like that, or is that out of your scope?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So what we're exploring in that space. So basically, to understand and calculate the return of investment of a design system, we need to project that into actual product development workflows. So for example, one thing we're trying to explore also too is to how we can integrate with the productivity tools like Linear, Jira, GitHub issues or wherever, and how we can track the let's say there is a ticket for which needs to, like, the engineer who's resolving that ticket needs to use elements from a design system, and with that metrics in place, our metrics in place, and having that data there, how we can track if. So here's the scenario. Front-end application uses the design system, adopted the design system for 70%. Like 70% of the components are from the design system. What is the time there to reach when the engineer starts to take that ticket and closes that ticket? And what is that time when the design system is being adopted by 80%? So how we can track that can eventually lead to really calculating that ROI for a design system. But we need to be integrated into productivity tools or just issue tracking tools like Linear, Jira, or whatever, like the product management tools. So we are really thinking towards that. I think the first thing we'll release, it will be an integration with Linear, and we will try to understand how we can connect the metrics of a design system being adopted and the metrics on how people are, like the faster development paces and the metrics around design system, how they correlate with each other. I think that's where the value will be. Yeah. Not just itself in a design system space, because there's mostly a dev tool. But this metric will affect the product development. Eventually, will, as you mentioned, will refer to a user growth, revenue, whatever. So there is for sure an aim of ours to just also track this. So,
that's really interesting. Let's get to a little bit of like the startup's journey. Yeah. Because I saw online that you guys started way back in 2018.
Oh,
is that right?
So
tell us a little bit about how, I'm sure like as every startup does, you guys pivot a little bit, you guys find your footing, and tell us how you got to this idea.
Oh yeah, so back in 2018, there was only me and, so we are three co-founders, me, Hovhannes Revonjan, who is doing the product and business side of things with me, and Moses Saponjan, who is the CTO. So back in 2018, me and Moses just get together and started to work on this. But I think we're not mature enough in terms of having a good experience, understanding the market, really being in that place in terms of the maturity to really do this. So after a couple of months, we just paused it. So basically 2018 was just 2 months efforts, and then we paused it, and then we continued I think it was summer last year. So basically the company is really, really young in terms of
Right.
that. The efforts are not,
Right.
but the company is really, really young.
Right.
So that's when we came together, like summer of last year. Started prototype very little things. And then we reached out to Big Story. Actually, our first demo was on the Crisp's website. We downloaded all the CSS and HTML from the Crisp website, hacked around it like to have that UI in place, created a separate website called For Crisp,
Right.
and we put our platform there, and it was whole another thing there. Like we've pivoted like very hard. So it was the first prototype was a control panel where the product managers and designers can change the preferences of the application without even engineers to be present in that process. So let's say we are designers. In Stylebit, we can change one color to another and just reload the production website, it will be updated.
Right.
So it was mostly going towards the A/B testing tools. But the A/B testing tools and the market there is very saturated.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
Super
players there.
competitive.
Yeah, super competitive. A lot of players there, a lot of big ones, a lot of small ones. So, and also it wasn't like natural place for us because we all are engineers. All the co-founders are engineers. We really understand the engineering side of things and not understanding, like we don't understand the marketing side of things yet.
Right.
That was just came natural for us to just pivot a little bit around. So, okay, the colors are the elements from a design system. Oh yeah. So the design system is the larger picture. Because also the problem we faced back in 2018 came from the design system. So it was mostly we came back to our roots, basically. Started to work on this, what we call syncing engine. So what we were doing, the first version was we synchronized the design system from the design tool to the code base. And then if a designer changes something inside the design tool for a design system, like changes color, updates typography, a new font, changes border radius or whatever, we automatically propagate those changes to the GitHub. So there is no any people or human labor basically involved in that process where designers should just message them, talk with them, sing around changes and stuff. But in a really, really hard way, we understood that it's just a very, very small feature. Right. It's not a standalone product. Every startup learns during the way. So and it was really helpful. Like we went to a Pioneer Accelerator from April, May till May. It really helped us a lot.
That in the US? Or?
Yeah. And the founder of Pioneer Accelerator is one of the investors in Figma, in Notion, Deal, Airtable. Nice. So the environment was like mini Y Combinator. So it was really helpful. The people there were really, really helpful in terms of like really finding our focus. So and then we always had that feedback from the customers or the customer interviews that people want to really understand how design system is doing. But really, we were really ignoring all those stuff. Like we were like hard ignoring all those stuff, just focusing on things we wanted to listen, to be honest. Right. And one of the mistakes was that. So, and then okay, let's just read whatever people were telling us. Okay, so we were just summarizing everything in Notion or whatever.
It's like a typical first-time founder issue, right? Like you get so obsessed with the product and what you want to build, but you forget that this is a business at the end of the day. And,
so
we all go through that.
That's a very, very good words you've mentioned. Yeah. It's a business. Like people romanticize startups. It is not. Please, it is not. There is a very recent podcast from Alex Friedman, and where is the guest was Mark Andreessen from A16Z. At the end of the podcast, the Mark Andreessen was saying the founders are the most miserable people on the earth. Yeah. It's don't do it. It's really, really, really hard. I also try to be transparent as a founder because I really don't like to tell that everything is good or whatever. Last year on autumn, September, October, whatever, we were keeping 100% statistic to be rejected by every accelerator we were applying to. Yeah. It was really tough back then. Then we started to be rejected by 100% of VCs, in last month or whatever. You should really start to understand that. I would not say that you should get to 1,000 no's to get your 1,001st yes or whatever. It's a really, in terms of that, it's really a game of numbers.
Sure.
One, it's a business, nothing to romanticize.
Yeah.
You need to charge your customers.
Yeah.
Like I was really afraid of talking to customers around pricing and wherever, and turned out it is not that scary. Like that dramatic and romantic thing, when you can put that aside, I mean, everything becomes a little bit more clear. Everything becomes more hard sciencey thing.
Yeah.
So, for example, in sales outreach, it's just numbers. So every 3 minutes, you can ask yourself, why I'm not writing this cold email.
Yeah.
So if you're reaching out to 200 people, you get 0 replies. Okay, like send to another 200, send then another 200, and then it's just a matter of efforts.
Yeah.
And like you're not getting that satisfaction back, but you need to keep pushing. So that is when everything gets miserable and stuff. So you're just like shooting in the air and hoping that we'll reach to
Another thing is like I've made this mistake in the past is like as engineers we think like you're going in to build something.
Oh yeah.
You're going in to sell something.
Yeah.
Like the building is the fun little part of the first couple months of the startup, but then like it becomes like you forget your engineering background, go pick up some MBA books.
That's like very good points. Like the point when I realized that, like it was the whole world changed for me.
Yeah.
Because the first version of our product, like I was coding, Moses were coding, Kovanes was coding. We were like doing this stuff. I mean, I think, okay, we will do this. Like, I can just put this on Reddit and people will use it. I mean, hell no. Like, they will not. They will never. Like, it's not the way.
That's not how it works.
And also, what I've discovered to myself is that, like, the traditional growth stuff, it will also not work for you if you don't understand those kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, of course, I was picking some business books and stuff to read, right? I was not understanding whatever there is written there.
Yeah.
So I was just reading it.
Sure.
But so there is also one thing that you need to read the books in parallel as your progress as a founder. So the very part that you understand that you need to do sales, that is the part when you should pick up the sales book.
Right.
So there is when the books are most helpful to you. So yeah, we did, and I'm sure we're doing everything wrong today too. Like it's it's a process. Like it's a real process where you don't get any feedback. The real feedback is the customer. Like one of the biggest mistakes for us was to being focused on investments. Like I think that there's a quote from YC that you should not build for your investors, you should build for customers. I mean, that's very
so
simple.
common sense, but
it's a very it's so simple, but yet a lot of people are getting into that trap, and as we also did. But I would say that we've been into an interview with Y Combinator, and it's a totally different experience. Even only the interview part changed our business model like completely. So I would just imagine what will be there, go through.
David from Active Loop had the same story. Like literally, I think in between like their first and second interview, they like went back to the hotel and changed something, and then went back and it was like a different product.
Yeah. So yeah, we're right now we in terms of like those were just the stories about.
Yeah,
so
sure.
right
now,
but
it's interesting because I think if none of this is meant to even like just discourage people from entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Like I think a friend of mine, Gevorg Solomonyan, founder of AIM, he put it really well. Like if you care about building, there's a lot to build on the business side too. Like you build systems that like scale with your company that ensure that your team is successful and working well and stuff. So like if you're a builder, it shouldn't like discourage you from moving from code to like building like human systems. So there's still a lot of interesting work to be done.
Those are very good
but
points.
You just need to, I think, make that realization that your job is going to transition from writing code to build a product to building like human systems and like a bigger vision for what the product is going to be in order to build the company.
Those are like really great points because I mean, if you choose that, if you want to be a founder, you need to transition from being an engineer to something else.
Yeah.
Like if you, even if you're the CEO or co-founder title gives you the right to do everything basically. Right. If right now you need to do marketing efforts, you just learn marketing.
Right.
If right now you need to do sales, you learn how to do sales.
Right.
Of course, not that well, but at least you should put in the efforts to do the sales because you need to then hire sales professionals or whatever. But I'm a fan of like keeping everything minimal. So
Sure.
we're basically a year-old company. We're just three co-founders here. We don't have any contractors. We don't have anyone else besides us working there, because I just really want for us, and the team wants to squeeze every little detail out of us. Right then we can hire someone.
Right.
So that is just one idea on how we want to proceed. But yeah, in general, it's extremely rewarding. It's extremely hard. But I mean, this is one of the efforts you can after being an engineer or marketer or product manager. After you reach some point, you want to create something. If you do have that feeling inside. When I got my first computer, from that point on, I knew that I will build something at some point in time.
Right.
But if you do have that feeling, really go and start the startup, because I mean it will be really hard. It's extremely hard. People don't realize the amount of the if we can put the scale of hardness,
right?
It's or whatever.
It's off the chart.
Yeah, it's and things are out of there can sometimes be scenarios where you never predict what will gonna happen. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard, but it's extremely rewarding. If someone has that feeling inside that they want to build something, that's the very first thing they should exit the company and go build something.
Right.
It's hard, but yeah, I mean, it's fun. And I mean, it's really fun.
Right. Right. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier. Two of your investors are Formula VC and Big Story VC, both Armenian VC funds. You said that you guys created, before you pivoted to the current version of Stylebit, you built something for Crisp. For people who don't know, one of the founding partners of Big Story are the co-founders of
the Crisp, yeah.
Crisp, David, and Arto. This is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten, and it sounds kind of like a nonsensical LinkedIn influencer post, but it's create value for someone before you ask for it. So and it really reminded me of what you did, trying to solve a pain point for Crisp to show David that where the use could be, right? And when you're going to ask him for investment.
Yeah.
So was that meeting I know you guys pivoted, but was that meeting productive to get the Big Story investment?
I would not say it was solving a problem for them. It was really it was good in the sense that we've put an effort to do something for them.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was getting an investment. It was really hard, because I'm sure every investor is afraid that all co-founders are engineers, because engineers are people with a very high possibly egos or whatever, because they're the creators or whatever, but the quote unquote. Right. But I mean, because the engineers should learn the marketing, sales, and whatever. So after we've built that, the conference name was Emerge conference. It was back in June 1st last year, right? Yeah, so at that time, me and Hovhannes saw David, because David was a speaker there from Crisp. And we just ran into him and started to say that, hey, we're building this, and we built this small demo or whatever. He told, okay, Arto is the best person here, because he's the founder of 10Web, the website builder. He's familiar with this space. So then we got the meeting. I want to say that also, as with this a possibility to the general public, every single minute with Arto, it's the thing you want if you're a founder. So one of the most productive talks we had was with Arto from 10Web and from Crisp. It was June 1st, and then I think we've received an investment on August or at the start of September. So it was quite a long time, 3.5 months. Yeah. But we did that, and then after that scaled from there. Yeah.
So you guys have now received pre-seed investments, I guess, from Formula VC and Big Story VC.
Yeah, and then the Pioneer Accelerator also joined in. Yeah, a couple of months later, because we went through an accelerator later on. So yeah, it's for us, it's a pre-seed funding. Right now, we're raising our seed round. Right when we graduated the Pioneer Accelerator, it sort of pushed us towards the demo day of their own, and then pushed us towards fundraising. I mean, we also knew that we start the fundraising for the seed stage. So yeah, I mean, right now the efforts are there. So it's just ongoing efforts for raising the seed round. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Can you tell us anything else about where the company is right now in terms of usage and?
Oh, yeah. So we have around 500 customers on the platform. We're not doing any marketing or wherever. People are just finding us and using it because designers and developers, the designers love communities. Developers love open source. We don't have anything open source yet, but we will have. So designers are just finding us. They're just using the platform to synchronize the design system with the code base. And also currently, as we have the waitlist for the metrics and analytics for a design system, because we're not yet, it's not a GA, like it's not a general availability. We're working with one of the earlier customers we had in terms of the testing and just doing everything with the metrics and the analytics around design system. We're really closely working with PayPal, but PayPal is a really larger company. They're waiting for us to show the demo to them. So fingers crossed we can have something there. So yeah, I mean, those individuals are just finding us and just using it. But our main focus is around design system metrics and analytics. That is the thing that is almost the most requested thing. So all our focus is there. We're supporting the platform, of course. So it's not a complete pivot. The design system metrics and analytics will be in the platform, the current platform. So yeah, I think, and right now we're raising our seed round. The best aim is like 1.52 million. It's also an ongoing process.
Right.
I don't have anything to share from there, but hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it still as tough out there as people were saying last year, or has it gotten a little bit better for raising?
I think it is. I mean, it is really tough. It is for sure really tough, even to compare to pre-COVID stages. A lot of our competitors raised like 10 plus million rounds and really had problems with scaling. We understood the problems very early on.
Yeah, the scaling problems.
Yeah. That eventually we're gonna face in a couple of years. They are facing it right now. So we are really lucky in terms of understanding the problem in the very early stages. But the funding ecosystem is really, really tough right now. Like, it is tough for B2Bs. I mean, I cannot imagine how tough it is for B2Cs. Yeah. Like, it's way tougher for them. Yeah. Like, you need to be a warrior if you want to raise B2C in venture funding in B2C. I mean, just hands-on respect there. If someone can raise the B2C. Yeah. So in B2Bs, in our case, it's a little bit different. So Stylebit is a vertical SaaS. It's not. So we are a niche vertical. So we're solving specific problem for a specific set of companies. But in general, those companies are basically all the digital products, because every digital product basically uses some form of a design system, either open source one like Material or whatever, or they're baking something in-house. So basically, from a very higher point of view, every digital product can be our potential customer. Right. But it solves a very specific niche inside that company. But our vision is to get there, measure the design system, and then slowly grow horizontally in those companies to be a more like one of the things that we're also exploring on how we can become a really good tool to onboard new designers. To show them report on how to use this design system. These are the documentation, this is the usage, so them too can quickly onboard them. So there is a vertical SaaS. So vertical SaaS mostly are tracked with the different metrics. So when we were when we're back in Silicon Valley, a couple of VCs were telling us that it's really enough for us if you have like 4 design partners and 0 revenue. So the vertical SaaS, for vertical SaaS, you should be really, really good expert in the field. Like, you really should understand design systems, engineering side, business side, design side, everything there. How it is affecting everything. Like, you should really be a good field expert, and also having an experience prior on working on design tools. Right. It's very, very helpful for us here. I would not say that it's a very like a good environment for vertical SaaS to raise right now, but the metrics are a little bit different. Sure. For traditional horizontal SaaS, it's the traction, of course, but our traction is just the amount of design partners we have, what are they saying, and what we see as the sustainable growth model from early on. So, yeah.
Fantastic. How big is your team now?
It's 3 of us.
It's still the three co-founders.
It's three of us.
Cool.
We have the three co-founders there, so we're covering everything. So it's a fun thing. I'm a designer right now, so I'm right now designing the new interfaces. After yesterday, I was a salesperson. So also yesterday, Hovannes was the marketing guy. So we're trying to do everything, and it's all right. I mean, of course, the efforts are there. I mean, it's just hard work. I mean, you should code, then you should design, then you should write the sales outreach, then you should do the prospecting call, and everything there.
Right.
So I mean, we're doing everything. I think we're gonna have someone. I mean, we do need key roles that we should hire. There is also where the fundraising comes in.
Sure.
I think we'll definitely have 3 or 4 people maximum join us. Maybe at the end of the next year summer, at the end of this time period, I think definitely we'll have 3 or 4 people join us. But still the team is really small.
Okay. So people who might be interested, they can follow you guys and
and
look out
that's
for
for
that.
sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. And last question, where do you hope to see Stylebit in 5 years?
I mean, if we can survive this, we really see that the Stylebit can become the go-to dev tool for all the companies that want to track and understand what is going on with their design system. We want to really become that go-to solution there, where people just know us and people are going to use it. We really, really want to explore all the ways we can help with AI systems to generate the code. And I would not say we want to become a bigger company. I really want for us to become a small team, but a very good team. So
by big you mean not 1,000 people, but
of course,
used by millions of
used by millions of people, but being like a 20 or 30 people team.
Yeah,
and
lean startup.
But more like Swiss knives, mostly. More like that. I mean, I don't have any experience with the people culture and whatever, but I'm sure I will learn, and we as a team can tackle that. But being a small team, tackling really huge market, and being also investing in open source. It's we are engineers. It's really close to our hearts, basically. So, of course, wait to see some stuff from Stylebit to be open source. I think to be the go-to solution, to be a really, really happy and a small, good team, that's a dream of ours. I mean, we don't want to tackle the very, very large things. So small things, like small steps.
Until you get to the top. Yeah. When you learn about the people culture stuff, you'll come back and tell us about it.
Definitely. I will.
Thank you so much it was a really, really awesome conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
Appreciate it. Wish you a lot of luck with all that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.